Japan's emperor led the tribute 5 years on from Fukushima, but for those who lived through it, the wounds are far from healed. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe also paid his respects in Tokyo on this somber anniversary, as across the country people bowed their heads in silence at 2:46 p.m. local time. That's when a magnitude 9 earthquake struck, triggering a tsunami. And the world's worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl in 1986. Like today, it was a Friday when the deadly waves gushed in along the northeast coast with devastating consequences. Around 20,000 people were killed. More than 160,000 others were forced to flee their homes as the tsunami also crippled the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, where meltdowns in 3 reactors spewed radiation over vast areas of the countryside. Billions have been spent to help stricken communities, but thousands of people still languish in temporary housing, with some areas no-go zones due to high radiation.
Regional elections in Germany this weekend, the first since the refugee crisis began, are expected to propel the anti-migrant Alternative for Germany party into state parliaments. One poll suggests the AfD could win up to 18% of the vote in the 3 regions in a direct challenge to Chancellor Merkel's open-door refugee policy. This AfD candidate says we're critical of the massive and uncontrolled flow of immigrants, and that can't be a good thing. But that doesn't mean we're hostile to foreigners. This voter says she won't back the AfD because she says they're racist, because they're hostile to foreigners, because they basically undermine what Mrs. Merkel does. I'm not a fan of her party, the CDU, but I do support her work. I think many people think that the AfD can't change much. I'm not 100% convinced, but a new direction must be taken. The AfD, originally founded as an anti-Euro party, is already represented in 5 of Germany's 16 regional parliaments, but it's not yet present in the 3 state assemblies that will be elected on Sunday in the areas around Stuttgart, Magdeburg and Mainz near Frankfurt. A UN human rights agency says it's concerned over the legality of a draft deal to return migrants from certain EU nations to Turkey. The comments from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights come after Athens and Ankara reaffirmed the tentative agreement last week. Greek police say 90 undocumented migrants from Pakistan and North Africa have been sent back to Turkey from Greece.
Among my concerns is the potential for collective and arbitrary expulsions, which are illegal. Border restrictions which do not permit determination of the circumstances of each individual violate international and European law.
Germany hopes the proposed deal will halt the influx of people entering Europe. This, however, is open to criticism, with claims it contravenes human rights.
We have to go according to the EU and international law. In other words, first of all, no risk of persecution in this country. Second, respect of the non-refoulement. And third, possibility to request and receive refugee status according with Geneva Convention.
The Commissioner insists at least 6,000 migrants per month need to be relocated from Greece to other EU member states. The scheme has so far successfully moved just 900 people.
With the door still shut on the Macedonian border, we asked our Athens correspondent for a snapshot of the migrant situation in Greece.
As we speak, there are an estimated 42,000 migrants on Greek soil. 12,000 of them are at the Iromeni camp on the Greek-Macedonian border, while 10,000 are still in the eastern Aegean islands overlooking Turkey. Of the 20,000 migrants scattered around mainland Greece from the country's capital all the way to the northern borders, 10,000 are said to be in the greater Athens area. 30% of all the migrants in Greece are believed to be children, but only 42% say they are Syrian nationals. The Greek government claims it has the capacity to offer shelter to at least 30,000 migrants, but most of them are highly reluctant to use these facilities, fearing that if they check in, they might get arrested and not be allowed to continue their trip to Western Europe.
και να μην μπορέσουν να συνεχίσουν το ταξίδι τους προς τη Δυτική Ευρώπη.
The Arab League's appointment of a veteran Egyptian diplomat from the Mubarak era as its new head comes at a crucial time for the Middle East. Ahmed Abul-Hayt is a former ambassador to the UN and also served as Egypt's foreign minister. The only contender for the post, he was picked in a late-night session in Cairo. He'll have to deal with the battle against ISIL, the 5-year-long Syrian civil war and the conflict in Yemen, both of which have seen regional rivals Iran and Saudi Arabia back opposing sides. Abul-Hayt, due to take over in July, will replace Nabil El Arabi, who said in February that he wouldn't be seeking a second mandate. The vote was delayed to take account of reservations from Qatar over his appointment, expressed by the small Gulf state's foreign minister. Qatar reportedly accuses Abul-Hayt of having taken a hostile stance towards Doha. Relations between Egypt and Qatar have also soured over the Muslim Brotherhood movement. Our correspondent in Cairo says many challenges and complicated issues await the new Secretary-General. The most prominent is how to resolve Arab countries' differences in order to reach common decisions which can be implemented on the ground.
euronews.
A close friend and confidant of Aung San Suu Kyi has been confirmed as the presidential candidate put forward by Myanmar's lower house of parliament. The Nobel laureate herself is constitutionally barred from the top job as her children are not citizens of Myanmar. But the vote in favour of a loyalist in a chamber dominated by her National League for Democracy brings Suu Kyi a step closer to ruling from the sidelines. On paper, though, it's her candidate Tin Jaw who's poised to become the head of the first democratically elected government in the former Burma since the army seized power in 1962. This after the NLD's crushing electoral win in November. He's been a trusted member of Suu Kyi's inner circle since the mid-1990s.
State prosecutors in Brazil are seeking the arrest of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva less than a week after he was questioned by federal police as part of a separate probe into alleged bribery and money laundering. The requested detention also concerns charges of dirty money, as well as identity fraud over claims he concealed ownership of a beachfront apartment. Sao Paulo State Prosecutor Cássio Roberto Concerino gave this statement. It's a roundup of testimonies, a roundup of documents, and the only conclusion that corresponded was that that luxury apartment was destined for the ex-president of the Republic. Concerino is seeking to use the testimony of witnesses as proof that the former president profited from housing projects which were financed by a state bankers cooperative. Lula denies wrongdoing. His lawyer has called on the Supreme Court to decide whether or not the case comes under the jurisdiction of a federal investigation into state-run oil company Petrobras. That crisis is threatening to topple his successor and supporter, President Dilma Rousseff.